fastest of all so far in practice. Of course, practice doesn't lead prizes just yet, but he is putting himself in a position to really look. You can just see his indicators coming in that he has gone out, he's set an astonishingly fast cutback, and now he peels off into the pit lane for some rest and recuperation to get ready to get back on track to setting more hot laps. Now then, following Neil Greenland, and we have Tom Jewell in the Audi TT as well. Just so you can see them heading over Hilltop now. And further back in the background, you can just see a couple of Time Attack's four-wheel drive entries. We have Arturus Luxurious in the Subaru Impreza. Anyway, so back, if we just follow then Tom Jewell around the circuit, you can just see Deep ahead of him. Now this Audi TT is of course something that you really don't see on track all that often. Another rare beast, and of course this is the beauty of Club 2-wheel drive, is you have an incredible variety of cars. You've got a Mitsubishi Colt and an Audi TT. Neither of them are really big circuit racing classics per se. Those titles, you could argue, belong to things like Mazda MX-5s and Renault Sport Clios, and maybe even the Ford Focus. But an Audi TT and a Mitsubishi Colt is not something you see on track all that often. Now this one in particular, if you just take a look at the aerodynamics, which are, Johnny Fletcher then has run off wide. He is just, you can just see tire marks left all over the grass as he's dug in. And now we go back to Neil Greenland then in the Mitsubishi Colt. Simon Norris, do apologise. Aha. So then back to Chris Williams in the pit lane, currently running fastest of all. And you can just see what Chris Williams' team do. So what Chris Williams and his team do, BC Racing, who are of course the Time Attack sponsor. Red flag now, there's too much going on. So that red flag will be caused by Johnny Fletcher, who we previously focused on for just a moment. He's parked on the outside, by the looks of it, of the hairpin, right on the exit, which is of course not where you want a car to be, as he is positioned right on the racing line. And should somebody run a little bit wide coming out of there, they will clatter right in the sides of him, which is of course not what we need. So while we await for him to be cleared, the session has been red flagged. What that means is everybody will queue back up into the pit lane. As you can see, everyone's driving very sensibly. No overtaking is allowed. No driving at pace is allowed because of the safety situation. Now, Johnny Fletcher is, of course, no stranger to controversy and to breakdowns, and he is very much a fighter. And every Time Attack season, it seems he comes up against challenges that he always manages to overcome. So hopefully we will see him back out later on track today. I remember fondly last year having had a gearbox failure out on track. They then lifted the car up during practice and warm-up, and while the track was live, on the day, swapped in a new gearbox and diff, had that all running sweetly, and back out on track he went. So if anyone can handle a challenge like this, it is absolutely Johnny Fletcher and the team. Just as we wait then for our drivers to get back into the pit lane so that we can begin the clearing process. There we go. We can just see Phil Neal then right at the front of the queue in the Solar Motorsport car. Keen as ever to get back out on track in a car that evolves year by year, and it's a real joy to see him back with us doing a full season this year. Just as we look on our cameras then, we can just see Johnny Fletcher's car being recovered onto the flatbed. A experience that I, as a ex-Time Attack competitor, can absolutely relate to. We do push these cars very hard. And as a result, we do often spend time on the back of a flatbed. But what can you do? That's life. And if you don't push hard, you don't get anywhere, right? That being said, of course, this is practice. There are no points, no prizes for practicing particularly well. And this is a session that our drivers are using to get used to the track, to find their feet after a very long off season, and to also make little chops and changes and tweaks to their setups, to their driving style. They'll be having discussions with their teams who may be looking at data. They'll be making tweaks to their chassis, to their tire settings, to their suspension, trying to set themselves up as best as possible for this afternoon's point scoring sessions, which are qualifying and the final. Now, these names are a throwback to an older time attack format. We don't have actual qualifying per se, it's just called qualifying, and it does award points now. Previously, when we had very, very big field sizes, qualifying meant that only the fastest drivers would then make it through into the final of the day. These days, qualifying doesn't mean exactly that. It is just another timed point scoring session alongside the final. However, it awards less points than the final. But both those sessions are key, and our drivers will want to get themselves and their cars in a best position as possible for when those sessions get underway after the lunch break. So now we're just watching the recovery truck do what it does best, recovering. Oh dear, don't mind me. Recovering Johnny Fletcher. You can just see it now completing the lap at perhaps a slower pace than what he's used to. And they will be off the track, clear of the circuit soon, and ready for action to resume. As we just take a look now down the circuit, you can just see how bumpy and undulating the elevation changes are. It's truly a difficult circuit to drive. It's very high speed. It's it's a bit like threading a needle, really, in terms of you want to be taking these corners as fast as possible, obviously. And in a lot of cases, that does involve just pinning your throttle to the floor and trying to get yourself a perfect line, which means you don't actually need to lift or brake that much. Just as we see some spectators there with their tents, I think, in the background by the looks of things. So yes, Oulton Park is very fast, very high-speed circuit, say, contrasting to Cadwell Park, which involves a lot of big braking zones and stuff like that. Oulton Park is just a very, very high-speed circuit. And of course, as well as the high-speed nature unsettling your car as well, as you all know, trying to steer a car at high speed really throws it around. Not only that, Oulton Park compounds that by having very big, pronounced elevation changes throughout the circuit too, which unsettle your car throughout the course of the lap. So really, you're trying to thread a needle whilst riding a bucking bronco. It's a real challenge, but a really rewarding one when you get it right. As our lights go green, and our cars are now back on track for the action to resume, then just following on board with David Dyson in the Porsche 718 GT4, a new car for Time Attack this year. And just coming into braking into the hairpin there, you could see the distance markers, the little white squares on the side of the track that indicate the distance to a corner. There you can see them just dotting the right side of your screen. When facing the drivers, they will tell them the distance to the next corner, and they are a crucial tool for our competitors to know and choose at which point to start braking. Of course, many of us have been watching esports during the off-season, and as you will know on, say, a simulation of Oulton Park, there is nothing stopping you from bringing on and overlaying onto the circuit a driving line that indicates your braking points, your turn-in points, your apexes, and so on. In real life, of course, there's none of that, and our drivers use key markers, like those little squares you see at the side of the track, to help them choose and remember the best point for them to start braking, to turn in, and so on. So just following Dave Dyson then in the Porsche 718 GT4. Riding on board, braking over Hilltop braking over Lakeside, into the hairpin, taking loads of curb on the exit, and it is a beautiful flat curb that is a real joy to take, although I suspect you're not technically meant to do that. Oh! Just as Luke Sejikowski goes off again then at the same corner, he is really struggling with that chicane, which is naturally the product of pushing so hard indeed. And in fact, he is fastest of all so far with a 134.9. So he is definitely on a move. You can see the fluorescent details of his car really blasting and carving a fluorescent line through Oulton Park, but just getting it a little bit wrong into braking after Lakeside into the hairpin. Now, it's a corner where we see a lot of cars locking up. He's been doing it as well on the front inside corner. Of course, that is natural because cars lean to the outside as they brake, so that lifts your inside wheel, giving it less contact with the ground. Of course, these are also mid-engined as well, these Honda NSXs, which mean that the front end is generally quite light, and you couple that with this funky elevation changes here at Oulton Park, and that's a real recipe for locking up your wheels, as we've seen so many do coming into the chicane. Now, just riding along with Luke Sejikowski down the avenue into Denton's, and now coming into Cascades. And now coming into Lakeside. Let's see whether he locks up again. How does he manage the hairpin this time? You can just see coming up on the right of your screen your brake marker. There you go. Keeps it clean this time. Kisses the apex. Takes loads of outside curb, just as you should. And now fires it down Hilltop. Just passing then Simon Norris. Braking into his lips. And you can just see the suspension there working. It's in places quite an uneven track surface here at Oulton Park. Running wide on the exit of Knickerbrook, now coming up and over Clay Hill. Through a water tower, a little flick-flack, and now coming into Druids corner. Keeping it clean, keeping it tidy. Chris Williams there in the distance, you can just see his key rival, the two very fast Hondas. Now coming into Lodge corner, getting ready to resume his lap, running uphill, up Deer Leap, and now crossing the line. Does he improve? Yep, he goes faster still with a 133.7, the fastest of all session so far. Luke Sejikowski then, very quick indeed. And we look to see whether Chris Williams has an answer for that. He doesn't, currently running down in seconds with a 135.4. Just riding on board then now with Alex Howe in the Solo Motorsport Ford Focus Estate. Like the other Solo Motorsport car of Phil Neal, also a Ford Focus Mark I, we've seen this car evolve over the course of a number of Time Attack seasons, having this time in the prolonged off-season, having had an engine swap, and back in Time Attack this year, faster and more powerful than ever before. And of course, some of you who've been following Time Attack for a while, like Phil Neal's car, the other Solo Motorsport machine, may remember this once upon a time being a completely standard Ford Focus. These days, it's back, and these days, it's angrier than ever. Let's ride on board then with Simon Norris, who just is coming over Hilltop behind Alex Howe in the Ford Focus Estate. Here they go then, braking into his lips. Oh, and here we go, back on board with Luke Sejikowski then, just coming around to finish his lap. Does he improve? Let's just take a look at the timing screens. Sector 3. Yep, goes faster still with a 133.3. A small improvement, but an improvement nonetheless. And crucially, putting him 2 seconds clear of Chris Williams in the supercharged Honda Civic. Just riding on board with him then as he comes past Dave Dyson in the Porsche 918 GT4. Two mid-engined, truly sporty, pedigreed machines. Gingerly treads through the hairpin, not at race pace. Back with Luke Sejikowski then, just coming up to Antonio Giovinazzo, a real time attack legend, of course, in the Alfa Romeo 155, who gets out of the way at just the last moment, flicks on his indicator to allow past Luke Sejikowski in the Honda NSX. Riding on board with him then, you can just see his side lights are on, indicating that he is probably on a hot lap. And in time attack language, we have a few signals to help our drivers negotiate and communicate with the traffic around them. Headlights on means I'm on a hot lap, and that means you are prioritized by our marshals, and other cars will be blue flagged out of your way unless they too are on a hot lap. Just as Luke Sejikowski then comes around to complete his lap, fails to improve, he just puts in a 1:39. Riding through Avenue, Dentons, and now Cascades, coming down into Lakeside, a corner that he has struggled with so far. Will he lock up under braking again? Let's just take a look. Keeps it tidy, kisses the apex, and there we go. Very clean indeed. And you can just see that he is now coming over Hilltop and crucially catching on to some traffic. So he may wish to back off a little bit just in case he gets held up in things he might not want to be held up in, as he has Simon Morris, who indicates and gets out of the way. Very well spotted indeed. He is really watching the cars around him now. He catches up to Phil Neal, who also has his headlights on in a different class, but equally valid. Both cars with their headlights on. Neither needs to yield. Let's see what happens here as both Phil Neal and Luke Sejikowski aim to conclude their hot laps unimpeded. Phil Neal, despite being in a slower car, has absolutely no need to get out of the way. He has his headlights on as well, and in time attack language, that means they are both equally important right now, as Luke Sejikowski then abandons his lap, comes into the pit lane. Phil Neal then crossing the start-finish line to set a personal best of 2 minutes so far. Of course, you may remember he failed to finish warm-up, so he will be glad with that result, having now been able to finish today's session, today's practice. Phil Neal then just following him around, doing his cool down lap and getting ready to enter back in the pits, riding along now with Ramunas Chapulis in his wide body Honda S2000. Now, some of you remember him last year running a Honda NSX. Now, Ramas does have a collection of Hondas. He's a bit of a specialist, and you can just see him now coming over the start-finish line in this particular wide-body GT1 style car. This year, he's chosen to bring his S2000 and not his NSX. And those shoes, the NSX shoes, have been filled instead by Tagiwa Motorsports. Queuing up in the pit lane are our drivers, our pro cars, getting ready then to head out for their practice. And meanwhile, we just ride along with Ramunas Chapulis coming through the hairpin, the dangerous hairpin that has been putting off so many drivers as they lock up, sailing straight past your turning point. Ramas keeps it clean, coming down Hilltop now into Hislops. Knickerbrook and round Druid's corner now. Sorry, Clay Hill. Heads over Clay Hill. Now through Water Tower, just out of shot, you saw very briefly Antonio Giovinazzo as well, coming through Druid's corner. Antonio Giovinazzo on a cooldown lap as a Simon man ahead of him. Ramos then overtakes him on the inside, getting ready, but yet maneuvers himself back online for a large corner, coming through Deer Leap now, and presumably about to dive into the pit lane, which he does not do. He missed the pit lane. Whoops. So everyone else, however, coming into the pit lane and just getting ready to clear the track of club cars for our pro cars to head out. Our timing screens then now cleared as our pro cars get ready to head out on track. Now this is still practice, it doesn't count for anything, but in Time Attack we see a clear progression as the day proceeds through its sessions. Practice, our drivers start turning up the wick a tiny bit. And then qualifying and the final, the points scoring sessions are when things really get hot. Now then, just looking at Mike Genvy's entry, new for 2020 in the Genvy Gun TS6. For those of you who have recently joined us, if Genvy seems like a familiar name, and you may know of Genvy throttle bodies, they are indeed one and the same. This is the Mike Genvy. The Mike Genvy TS6, then, is, as we'll see during the session, one of our GT3 sports car and prototype class cars, and it is a very old school Le Mans prototype looking machine with an open top, very long, very wide, very, very, very low. Now, unlike the club cars, which are fairly extensively modified, but within reason, our pro cars really take this to the next level, with the ultimate being our pro extreme cars, which are basically unlimited. There are no rules. Build whatever you want. Go as quickly as you can, just like Paul Doyle here in the BC Racing Subaru Impreza. Riding on boards then with Jeff Oulton in the Volkswagen Golf number 19. You can actually see a little bit of traffic here, as well as the Angus Eddowes Renault Sport Clio 172 and the Honda Civic of Rob Phillips, number 440. These are our pro two-wheel drive cars. And you can just see them coming all over the start finish line together. Jeff Oulton just leading that little pack ahead of Angus Eddowes and then Rob Phillips. All of our pro two-wheel drive cars then running in formation together, beginning their next lap, coming into Denton's, and now Cascades, And now we'll see them coming into Lakeside, the hairpin at the end of which, a bit of smoke there coming off of Jeff Alden's car, with a bit of wheel spin coming out of Cascades. Very powerful, these things indeed. The hairpin then providing not too challenging for any of our three Pro 2-wheel drive cars. Now, throughout the day, we've seen the hairpin really throwing off some drivers, given the severe elevation changes and high speed, and of course, very front-heavy nature of braking, but combined with all kinds of funny shenanigans that the elevation changes that the circuit throw up. Oh, just as you can see that Rob Phillips getting up on 3 wheels in the Honda Civic, and also Angus Eddowes. These are things that our front-wheel drive friends will be very familiar with. Anything fast, good handling, and front-wheel drive has that beautiful natural tendency to hop up on 3 wheels through corners, just as we see them doing that right exactly now. Coming through, and let's jump and follow Mike Janvey then. As you can see, a very unusual looking machine compared to everything else we have here today. That might be Caswell's Seat Leon TSR that has just come off the circuit there. And that's really in a bit of a precarious position. The recovery truck is on the move, and we have another red flag. Bearing in mind, the circuit has not been used extensively in a very long time. It's what some know as green. The track surface is green, meaning that it's not really been bedded in yet with lots of nice chunky rubber that you get as the season progresses. So the track is still green, and crucially, our drivers are still green. They're very rusty potentially after a long off-season. I can't say exactly for sure what happened here, but whatever the scenario is, that car is definitely not in a safe position, being right on the outside of a corner and ready for another car to hit it should they fall off the track in that place too. So given the precarity of this car's positioning, we've had to red flag the session for this car to be recovered so that our drivers could then safely push as they aim to improve their lap times further still. A marshal then, just checking in on the driver, making sure everything is okay, walks off as the recovery truck comes onto the scene. Those of you wondering whether perhaps we're having a lot of red flags for the morning's running, we haven't even hit the afternoon yet. Yes, you are correct. We have had a very stop-start day so far. But that is, again, that's just the nature of the beast. When cars, drivers, circuits haven't been ran in anger for a long time, then these things are going to happen. And of course, if there were any time to fall off the circuit and push that little bit too hard, it's in these early sessions. Because in qualifying and the final, every second counts. And you don't want to be falling off the track then. If you want to experiment with your lines, really try to explore the limits of grip, this is the session to do it. And so we have seen exactly that happen. The clock has now stopped at 16 minutes 07. We were barely 4 minutes into the session before it was red flagged, and our remaining drivers have now lined up in the pit lane in preparation for attacking a clear circuit. Stuart Lyons in the Ginetta G55, who we previously saw running during the invitation class, is now back on track. He needed to be recovered as well at the end of that session, but you'll be pleased to know that he is back. And they are now edging ever closer to the pit lane exit in preparation for heading back out on track. Again, as you can just see on your screens now, they were kind of tentatively queued up in the middle of the pit lane, and now they're queuing really at the sharp end with Mick Porter in the R32 Skyline GTR right at the front of that queue and raring to go And you can see to the left of him a pit lane speed limit sign, 85 kilometers an hour. And crucially, that sign is now crossed out. There is no more speed limit. Once you're out of the pit lane, it is full speed ahead, all guns blazing, and our drivers cannot wait to get back out there and really continue with their practice session. Naturally, when everyone is parked up in the pit lane, it's a really good opportunity to just take a look at all of the cars while they're together. And you'll see that our pro classes are very varied. Included here, we have our Club Pro GT3 Sports Car Prototype, Pro Two-Wheel Drive, and Pro Extreme classes. Now, towards your left, you'll see the Subaru Impreza of Paul Doyle, the BC racing car, with an absolutely humongous wing on the back of it. Now, Pro Extreme is basically an unlimited class. Everything goes, full aero, big diffusers, flat floors, you name it, you can run it. And crucially, our Pro cars can also run a racing Pirelli slick. Our club cars use the Pirelli Trofeo R track day tire, which comes as standard on a lot of supercars and sports cars, and is generally, having driven it on it myself, a really formidable track day tire. Almost a semi-slick. However, our pro cars can run on full slicks, and of course they will be looking to make the most of that today. That puts them in a very different league. You combine slick tires and very aggressive, ambitious aerodynamics, and that really gives you a whole different lap time to potential to what our club cars are going to be capable of. So the pro cars are really great fun to watch, although not right now while they're in the pit lane. But don't worry, that'll be fixed soon. You may notice at the top of your screen that our timer has gone down from 16 minutes to 10 minutes. Naturally, this is an event with a very busy schedule to stick to, and these delays do mean sometimes cutting into the track time, meaning that having now lost 6 minutes of track time, these remaining 10 are even more crucial for our drivers as they just get in some final bits of practice before the afternoon's point scoring sessions. The flag is now green. Lights at the end of the pit lane go green. And you could see the team then of Stuart Lyons poking their heads in the Ginetta G55 had to promptly remove themselves from his car. Oh dear, just then as Mick Porter needs a bit of a push to get out of the way, he is unable to start, and everyone else then heads back out onto the circuit. Following Bruce Winfield's car, the Mitsubishi Evo 7, an entry we haven't really spoken much about today, but a real time attack veteran as well. Bruce Winfield has been around for years and years and years, and this time returns as a single round entry. Now, you can tell which cars are single round entries because, oh, here we go, getting a little bit crowded now, breaking into the hairpin, just riding on the tail end of Damian Bradley in the Subaru Legacy. Also a very unusual platform to see in Time Attack, or generally on circuits. And that makes Time Attack all the better for it, for the diverse range of platforms that it attracts. Bruce Winfield then back as a single round entry, and you can identify single round entries by a black and amber sticker on their rear window, as you can just see one now, for example, on the Mitsubishi Evolution that just passed us now. Now, the black and amber oval sticker has the letters OHW, which you wouldn't think means single round entry, and you would be right if you know the alphabet. What that actually means is one hit wonder, which is what our single round entries were once known as, and we've kept that nomenclature for this sticker as well. So single round entry, one hit wonder, call it what you will. What that means is Bruce Winfield will not be staying with us for a full season, so we better make the most of his presence today as he comes into Cascades, keeping it tidy through there, and now coming into Lakeside, getting ready for breaking into the chicane. You can see a big crest there, which crucially really throws your car off balance into the chicane. He is attempting a late turn-in with a late apex, lifting up on three wheels towards the corner exit after he hits the curb, now coming over Hilltop and breaking into Hislops, still crucially behind Damian Bradley in the Subaru Legacy. A key part of Time Attack as he tripods again, coming into Knickerbrook up and over Clay Hill, is finding yourself space. We are not racing wheel to wheel. We are trying to set the best lap time we can, but crucially, everyone is trying to do that at the same time, which means there is great potential to get tangled up with other cars, and a key part of the strategy of Time Attack, just as he weaves between traffic, is trying to really find, and where necessary, muscle your way into some clean air. Stuart Lyons sets the fastest session of all so far. Stuart Lyons in the Volkswagen Golf. That is correct. Missing off my entry list. Let me just write him in. Stuart Lyons. Volkswagen Golf. Right, and there he is. Now, we're now just following through. Here we are, riding on board with the Golf. Then, and he is just ahead of Matt Nguyen in the number 22 Mitsubishi Evolution. We discussed previously Mike Genvy's entry, the Genvy Gun TS6 pod, involved in a little bit of traffic coming into the chicane, the hairpin at the end of Lakeside, and you can see how low to the ground it's running. It basically looks like a very fast vacuum cleaner, just absolutely stuck to the ground with its open top, big arrow, very low ride height. Just as he jostles for position, throws out a very cool flame out of the back as he lifts off to avoid clattering into the back of the number 78 Volkswagen Golf. Still sits behind it then, coming through Druid's Corner now up. There we go, just edges past him into Lodge Corner. He'll now weave his way through Deer Leap, uphill, like a deer's leap, crosses the start-finish line, and goes fastest of all with a 125.6. So last time out, we saw him lapping in the low 126s, and we knew a 125 would be possible, and there we go. He's now achieved that, going fastest of all so far. Comes into Cascades, really a lot earlier than I was expecting him to, just showing how fast he really is right now. Up over the crest, which perfectly unsettles you for breaking into the hairpin, making life very difficult indeed. But he manages to keep it together through the hairpin, keeps it nice and tidy. Now running up and over the hilltop. Again, very bumpy, under-braking into Hislop's as Bruce Winfield then in one of the Pro Extreme cars, the number 37 Mitsubishi Evolution 9, goes faster still. And of course, this is where the grudge match we know and love in Time Attack between our sports cars and prototypes and our Pro Extreme cars resumes, as there is absolutely nothing to split our two fastest entries. Bruce Winfield currently fastest with a 125.4, and Mike Genvy, the single round entry in the Genvy TS6, second fastest with a 125.6. 0.2 of a second splits our fastest two drivers. Mike Genvy then goes even faster with an astonishingly quick 122.7. He manages to find 3 seconds of pace out of somewhere, and he absolutely slams in a very fast time indeed. If we just follow him round the track then briefly, as 2 minutes and 20 seconds of the session remain. Here he comes, braking into the hairpin. Has he got it in him to go faster still? Surely not. Looking very conservative through the hairpin. You can see on the back of his car his cooldown lights flashing away. Now, in Time Attack lingo, that light on the back of your car indicates to drivers around you that you are no longer pushing and you will yield if required to do so by the car on a hot lap. Given how important it is to be able to complete a lap unimpeded by traffic, our drivers have a system of communicating their intentions with each other with a cool-down light on the back of the car indicating that you are on a cool-down lap, and headlights on, meaning that you are on a fast lap. Get out of my way. However, as we can see here, all 3 of our drivers, no headlights are on. They are on neither a hot nor a cool-down lap. They're on a lukewarm lap. Coming into Hislop's then, we're following Gary Wardle in the Porsche GT3. Behind him is Rob Loftus in the Mitsubishi Evo 7, and just behind him is Rob Phillips in the Honda Civic. Coming into Clay Hill and Water Tower now, and into Druids come our noble and brave trio. Up the final back straight into Lodge Corner, catching up to Scott Caruthers in the Mazda RX-7, another rare beast. Crossing the start-finish line, we have personal bests that Bruce Winfield slams in a personal best of 124.8. Still 2 seconds off Mike Genvy's best. And truly the fight between Pro Extreme and GT cars resumes in anger. So, the checkered flag is now out, the timer has run down, and you can see Mike Genvy has his lights on. The car doesn't have any real headlights per se, but he does have a strip of LEDs mounted to his roll bar, which, like anyone else, he can switch on to indicate that he is coming around on what he believes is a stonker. Please do not hold me up, people. As he crosses the start-finish line, and what does he do? He fails to improve on his best so far and sets a 123.0. So, what that means is he fails to improve on his best time of 122.7. Behind him is Bruce Winfield, but leading the Pro Extreme class with a 124.8. And that is just ahead of Damian Bradley with a 124.9. So checkered flags are out, our hot laps are now wrapped up, and we will see our drivers, our intrepid drivers now coming back into, oh my goodness, what's going on here? So we have one of our two red Evos just parked up here then. Could that be Hislop's? Clay Hill? One of the two, probably. difficult to tell which one of the two that is. They can't quite see his number. So he is parked up at the exit of Knickerbrook, where our drivers are going past him into Clay Hill. You can just see the marshal then running up to him to check that he is okay. Of course, socially distanced by signaling from outside the car, just to check whether the driver is happy. Happy is perhaps the wrong word to use. He is probably unhappy, but just to check that he is okay. And then to recover that stricken car for our next session to get underway. That being said, that is all for the morning's Time Attack running. Time Attack will be back after lunchtime for our actual points scoring sessions, the qualifying and the final, which, as we've discussed, aren't strictly speaking qualifying and a final because everyone qualifies. So those are just names that are a throwback to a Time Attack format of years gone by, but crucially, they are both competitive, both timed, both point scoring sessions, and those are the ones to watch. If you think you've had a day of action so far, you ain't seen nothing yet. That is all yet to come in this afternoon's running after lunchtime. Just as you can see then, someone's tyre marks after having dug into the grass out of the hairpin. The hairpin being a corner that has challenged a lot of our drivers today. As braking into the hairpin, you are pitched over a crest at high speed, which really unsettles your car and does all kinds of funny stuff at a time when, crucially, you want it to be behaving and coming into braking perfectly level. And most of the time, it is not doing that, which is a really rewarding challenge to get right. But on the few instances that you don't get it right, it will send you off the track, as we've seen happen to many of our drivers so far. Mike Genvy then, very, very fast indeed, as you may expect from a class dedicated to purpose-built GT and endurance racing cars. As he comes around to finish up his cool-down lap, you can see the cooling lap light on the back of his car blinking away, signaling to drivers around him and also to the marshals that he is now finishing his lap. He's now cooling off. He's going to be well behaved, and no more quick lap times from him. As he now let's just switch back then to the stricken car of still can't tell. Anyway, it would be very helpful if I could see his numbers. We have two very similar red Mitsubishi Evolutions. So that will remain a mystery and a cliffhanger. But for now, that does conclude our morning's running. We now head into lunch. That is the end of the running in practice. Fastest of all then is Mike Genvy, just ahead of Bruce Winfield, and then Damian Bradley. They conclude our top three. And then following that, we have Stuart Lyons in the Janessa G55. Then we have the number 78 Volkswagen Golf of Docker. Then we have Ewing, Reed, Loftus, Caruthers, Wardle, and that rounds up our top 10. So thank you all for watching so far. Do join us in a little bit after the lunch break. It'll be perhaps wise to switch on with us at around 1 o'clock. And we will see you then for even more action. If you feel this was good, then just you wait for what we have in store for you when we put some points on the line. We'll see you then.
only the function of braking power but the appearance and safe driving. Whatever the horsepower you have, you can stop it all. Professional customization. Offer 20,000 of coupon color codes for customers' options. You can choose any color to match your vehicle. Besides pursuing great performance, if you also emphasize on the appearance of the caliper, then polished forged caliper will be a great choice for you. With special polished treatment, it can add distinctness. Titanium forged caliper is equipped with better radiating and anti-corrosion effect which extends the kit's service life. We also provide polished silver, polished gold, and titanium caliper. Accurate brake. Perfect ride.
I listen to and watch what people say. I see a lot of people out there, and I mean a lot, who have such passion for their interests. Without even realising it, they're motivating others to ignore negativity and pursue their dream. What I also see are stacks of people who want to compete but are still not quite ready to take the plunge. But it's not a plunge, it's a hugely rewarding step forwards, and you might not think you're ready, but you are. And you always have been, ever since you lost your first 10 mil, picked up that first spanner, or wrapped your knuckles and took a load of skin with it. That grit and determination you have will always be there. Sometimes you just need to set it free. What I also see is a lot of people who make judgments or excuses for people not to compete and try and dissuade others from doing so. Why? You might not be living your dream, but don't crush someone else's. Don't let people talk you out of something just because they don't have the guts to do it themselves. There are so many judgmental people out there who will hide behind a keyboard and criticise others, but take no positive action themselves. But I guarantee they wouldn't dare say it face to face. That's why nobody will remember their name. And if they do, it's for the wrong reasons. 9 times out of 10, the people who say things like, oh, time attack or competing is expensive or you don't get much track time, are the ones who've never and will probably never take part themselves. If track days are enough for you, fair enough. But let me tell you something, competing is entirely different. In time attack, for example, those 4 20-minute sessions might look like less time, but believe me, they are worlds apart from a regular track day. The focus you need, the pressure you'll feel as thousands of eyes are on you, and the sheer joy of watching your times tumble as you get quicker and quicker, and being part of one of the most friendly and helpful motorsport families there is, it's absolutely intoxicating. It's now even easier to enter time attack and become involved. If you don't want to commit to a whole season and just want to try it out, there's a new Run What You Brung class. No need for control tyres, just pay your fee, turn up and drive. Couldn't be any simpler, but you'll get to experience what the series is like. It's just £200 entry per event, and you need to purchase some mandatory safety items, but that's it. If you're overall fastest on the day, you'll receive a £200 entry fee back. Progressing our commitment to support entry-level motorsport, we have upped the ante for those competing for the whole season in Clubman and Clubman Plus. Podium places for the end of season standings will now receive prizes as follows. First place, £5,000. Second place, £2,000. Third place, £1,000. All entrants in Clubman and Clubman Plus classes will also receive a faster merchandise pack to include a champion-specific hoodie, 2 t-shirts, a cap, and a few other surprise goodies too. To showcase everybody's progress and hard work as the season progresses, we'll also be opening up a portal for entrants in those 2 classes to communicate directly with us and send us updates and photos of their cars, which will be featured on our social media platform throughout the season. We'll also pick a handful of cars from Clubman and Clubman Plus to create full video features on too. This is open to anybody who has competed in the Clubman and Clubman Plus classes in the last 2 years, and of course anybody new to Time Attack. If you have a capable road car in good order that isn't extensively modified, then these 2 classes are for you. It will be so easy for us as a team to only care about us, focus on us, hey everyone look at what we're doing. But there's a much bigger picture. There is no me, me, me. This is about us wanting to give something back, to give people the gentle nudge and motivation they need to do something that will give guaranteed smiles. Of course, we want to have fun, but we want you to have fun as well. Get the most out of your car and use it what it was built for. Are you going to take that step, or just spend each day putting it off and making excuses to yourself and keep feeling like there's something missing? I've said it before, if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your abilities, no half measures, no regrets. That's what we have done. Are you going to? Forget what others say or think, believe in yourself and do what you want to do. Do what makes you happy. Put yourself first. You might think to yourself, I'm not going to do well. It doesn't matter if you come last. The most important thing is that you enjoy it. You've achieved far more than the guy that didn't do it at all. People cannot stand it when your authenticity is greater than their facade. There is a phrase that many people know, which is to win, you must first finish. But to finish, you must at least start.
Last episode, we introduced the caliper piston and components. This time we are going to show you the process of paint and assembly. First, the caliper need to be painted for several times, so it can show its bright and beautiful appearance. After painting, we put the caliper into oven. The calipers need to pass the test of roasting in over 200 degrees to reach the standard. Brake caliper is the most important role of every car. The assembly is also important. The assembly of every brake line and screw need to be final checked by the torque wrench. The place where the brake pad on is also important. We will use fixture to make sure the brake pad size of testing if the brake pad will be too tight or too loose. The caliper inside oil piston needs to be vacuumed. Use high pressure air piston to clip the torque. Only the closest combination of piston and oil piston can make sure the caliper is perfect. Put every caliper into the water to test its air tightness. After we make sure there is no bubble comes out from the pistons, the caliper passed the test. Afterward, put the caliper on the carve machine to make logo carving. Carve carbon logo its unique design. Let all of our high quality calipers be received by our customer.
Hi, I'm Scott from SuperPro. These videos are designed to introduce you to our SuperPro rail control sway bar links. We have a full range of sway bar links for lots of different vehicles. Our sway bar links come packaged in disassembled, so it's critically important that they get assembled correctly. They include some pretty comprehensive fitting instructions. We've gone to great lengths to make sure that if you follow these fitting instructions, you'll get the best out of your SuperPro sway bar links. They're a heavy-duty link that's designed to replace either an OE sway bar link or to be used in a lowered or raised application where the length of the sway bar link needs to be changed to accommodate for the change in ride height. First of all, the first thing you do when you remove the sway bar link from the vehicle, you need to assemble and match the length of the Super Pro sway bar link to the OE link, taking into consideration the orientation of the ball ends. That needs to be absolutely spot on. Just nip the nuts up when you've made them to the correct length, and then fit them to the vehicle. What we are trying to achieve is a sway bar link that is fitted to the sway bar or the vehicle strut on a perfect angle, not loaded like so, because that will result in failure. Now, Super Pro sway bar links, we've designed these with a fail-safe so that if the link was to break, that's designed in. The last thing you want to have happen is if you've fitted them to the incorrect length and you break off the bracket on the side of the strut, that would result in a more catastrophic failure, and it's a lot more expensive to replace than just one sway bar link. So, what do you need to do? Make sure that they're the correct length. Each sway bar link on each side of the vehicle needs to be exactly the same length as the OE link. Some vehicles have a different length linked on one side to the other side. A lot of vehicles have links that are the same length on one side to the other. Please ensure that your sway bar links are adjusted to exactly the same length on each side of the vehicle. The fitting instructions